So Darwin presented 4 types of evidence to back up these theories, and they were the fossil record, geographical distribution of living species, homologous structures of living organisms, and the similarities in early development or embryology. And here's a look at the fossil record, and what we've done is compared the fossils of organisms, and by knowing where they fall in the in rock layers, we can figure out when organisms have changed, and you can really see the evolution of a organism. This happens to be the cat family here, and you can see that the cats had a common ancestor here. All these cats did, and then they evolved, and you can see that some of them stopped. Here's a branch right here that evolved out, and they all died off. And you can see now here, this is one of the families, sorry, not families, species that has lived on. This is Panthera here. We also see that there are similar but unrelated organisms in similar environments. These animals kind of fit a little niche in their environment. You can see we have the beaver, the muskrat, the capybara, and the coipu. I thought I saw a capybara when I was down in Mexico not that long ago. But all these organisms have come from a common ancestor, and they kind of fit a particular niche in the environment. They do very similar things, and they probably have been selected for that particular part of the environment. They're not related, but they all do basically the same job. Lastly, homologous structures are structures that are that organisms that once came from a common ancestor have. For instance, we have what's called the coccyx, which is what you probably refer to as the tailbone, and you can see very easily how that probably was a tail at one point, just like a cat or a dog, or some apes have tails. There's another interesting one. This has to do with the bones that form in the jaw of, I believe, fish, and those same bones that are found in the fish actually turn out to be our ear bones, the ossicles, which are, you can see they're much smaller here because they serve a very different purpose than these large bones that help that really make up part of the joint. And this is the example you have in the book, and this is a great example of homologous body structures. You can see that all these organisms, what you're seeing is their forelimb, their arm, so to speak. And you can see that what they've done is color-coded each of the bones in all these organisms, and and how they relate to each other. And you can see these pair of bones right here in purple. Well, on the alligator, the turtle has them too, and in turn, so does a bird. And the fact is that all these organisms have these bones here, and they call them homologous structures. You can see in fish that they have the similar bones. So this probably suggests that they all had a common ancestor. Now here's no, there aren't just homologous structures. There are also what's called vestigial body structures, and these are ones that no longer serve very important functions, and they're often reduced in size, and often they don't serve any purpose. And this is a skeleton of a baleen whale, I believe, and if you look off right here, this is a hip bone, and we all know that a whale doesn't have hips, so this is a leftover bone, from the common ancestor that whales share with other mammals. Here you can see, boy, that looks like an 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers. There's a forearm, there's an upper arm, there's a shoulder blade right there, ribs, spine. That looks a lot. We share a lot of the same bone structure as a baleen whale. In humans, there are several ones vestigial structures that we hear about. We have muscles in our ears that we don't use anymore. We are covered with hair that really doesn't serve any purpose. It did at one time. It kept us warm. Famously, we have an appendix, which in other animals is a very important structure for digestion. Ours, it does sort of serve. The thinking is now that it does serve a function, in that it's a place for bacteria to be located, helpful bacteria, but it really doesn't perform the same function as it used to, and it's now considered a vestigial structure because it really has gotten smaller. And here's one of the fourth part of evidence he had is what's called embryology. And if you can see that all these organisms, basically as they start as an embryo, and as they continue and develop, they all sort of look the same, and which also suggests a common ancestor. So Darwin's theory has actually stood up to the test of time, and as time has gone on, it has been helped out with modern findings, and I threw the structure of DNA up there because that in itself is great proof of how evolution works. We'll talk a little bit more about mutations, which lead to variation, but we all know about mutations. And once we understand how DNA works, then you can understand how you end up with mutations. And Darwin's evolution is considered the grand unifying theory of the life sciences. Basically, almost anything that's done in the life sciences and biology, in some way, the thought process of that research or of that finding, you always can go back and see how it fits in the evolution of the evolutionary theory. It all fits into a big puzzle, and we learn more about evolution every time. All the time we're learning more about evolution as we make more and more discoveries, and Darwin's theory is certainly not a static theory. It's evolving itself. This concept map shows the four pieces of evidence that Darwin used: the fossil record, geographic distribution, homologous body structures, similarities in early development, and this is just a reminder on those things. So once again, I always encourage you to read your book, watch other videos, go to other sources. It can only help you.